Hi everyone, Velvet here, and I have some stories for you today. But before we get started, could you please do me a huge favor and like, comment, and subscribe? It'll really help the channel out. Let's get to it. Oh, and before we start, if you hear anything crazy in the background, it's really windy over here today, so please bear with me. Our first one comes from Friendly Novel 1031. Am I the beehole for explaining to my kids that their half-brother is feeling the way he does is sometimes a part of life? My husband and I are raising 3 kids. My husband was married before me, and he has a son. Cole, a 16-year-old male, from his first marriage. Cole's mom died at age 11, and my husband and I met 9 years ago, and married 7 years ago. Together, my husband and I have a daughter, Freya, 6, and Theo, 5. Cole has never really accepted me as family or the kids. He's not unkind, but disinterested in us. But especially the kids. It's not that he doesn't like kids. He's great with other kids. Cole was in therapy after his mom died, and we did family therapy together before my husband and I married. He never spoke against the marriage or us having kids, but he's not very warm towards us either. It really shows with the kids more because they really want to be closer to him. They want him to take the same interest in them as he does in other kids. They have seen him with his friends' much younger siblings and with younger cousins and with the kids in the neighborhood. My husband and I don't push too hard. I will take Cole to pick up a video game every few weeks. Because he loves gaming and I ask him questions about games, he enjoys as a way of trying to bond. We also go to arcades, the pool, and we go for walks all together. Yesterday, I was taking the kids to a Halloween party, and Freya asked me why Cole doesn't like them, and I asked what she means. She said she asked why he likes other kids more than them, and he told her that they don't have the same mom. Theo didn't really understand most of it, but Freya understood enough to be upset. She was crying, and Theo was confused more than anything. This came up because Freya wanted to show off her costume to Cole, but he wasn't interested. Yet he does show interest in other kids' costumes. I told them sometimes when a kid ends up with their parents no longer together, and they fight a lot, or when a kid loses their mommy or daddy, young like Cole lost his mommy, it means they find it hard to let some people into their heart, that Cole lost his mommy. And it made it harder for him to feel about us the way we feel about him. Freya said her best friend had a sister who had a different dad, but she loves her. I told her it doesn't happen all of the time, and sometimes it gets better. But that how Cole feels does happen at times, and all we can do is try to accept it and respect the way he feels. I also told him that it was not their fault at all. My husband wasn't home at the time, but when he did, I told him what happened. His parents were also home because they wanted to see the kids all dressed up. They heard what I told my husband, and they told me I should have never said that to the kids. Because I should know that Cole isn't being fully honest when he says things about not loving them. And I will make the kids think it's true when they're so little and too young to really understand the complexities. And I made it so black and white for them. My husband told his parents they needed to leave, but they called me a bad mom before they left. Am I the beehole? Hi OP, you are not the beehole in this one. I don't understand where your husband's parents are coming from. I thought you handled it well. You didn't paint Cole in a bad light or anything like that. You just told him that, hey, he's going through some stuff and people deal with this differently. And I don't see how they would end up thinking Cole hates them. From what I took away from that was you need to give him some time and eventually, hopefully, he'll start to, treat treat your kids like siblings. Also, good on your husband for kicking out his parents when they were rude to you like that. I don't see what they're saying about you making it black and white. You basically said give him some time. It's different for everyone. And our second one comes from I don't care about your Tesla. Am I the beehole for telling my sister's boyfriend nobody cares about his Tesla? I, a 25-year-old male, blew up on my sister's 21-year-old female boyfriend, a 24-year-old male, after months of him constantly bragging about his Tesla. I met him a few months ago, and it seemed like his entire personality was his Tesla. I would say stuff like, I have to stop at the gas station, and he would say, what's that? I haven't heard about that in years. Or make stupid comments that would lead back to him owning a Tesla Model 3. I didn't mind it at first, but then it came to the point where he was always bringing it up, every time in conversations to where everyone seemed annoyed about it. I'm pretty successful in my career selling one of my businesses for around a low 8 figures a year ago, and started investing in low-risk investments. I have been living a modest life, own a small 3-bedroom house, starting another business in pest control, and a 2023 Civic Sport that I paid for in cash. One thing I can't stand is someone bragging or being flashy about money. Today, my brother and I were talking about buying a car, and he came in and insisted on buying a Tesla. Because it was the future of cars, he was bragging about it the entire time, and trying to convince my brother that even with the high price, it's worth it. It didn't bother me until he said, "Don't end up like your brother buying a Honda Civic, they're trash." I blew up at that point, telling him he didn't know what he was talking about. He wants to look rich and pretend to be rich because he has a Tesla. Meanwhile, he's living at his parents' house. Then I proceeded to tell him that I had enough money to buy 10 of his Teslas in cash. And it's really not impressive, but rather makes him seem like a moron trying to brag about his own Tesla. And if you want to pretend to be rich, you should back the talk instead of leasing a Tesla. This made him really upset and left my parents' house immediately. Both my sister and parents are mad at me because he was trying to be helpful, and they thought I was being rude and bragging about my money. So Reddit, am I the beehole for telling my sister's boyfriend nobody cares about his Tesla? No, you are not the beehole. Why is it fair for him to brag and rub everything in everybody's face about his stupid car? Because I think cars are stupid. I see a car as a tool and nothing more. And then when you confront him and tell him about what you have, you're all of a sudden bragging, but it's okay for him to brag? And to be honest, I looked into Teslas, not my cup of tea. Personally, I would go with a nice Toyota Camry. Also, how is he being helpful? He was just using that as a way to brag about his stupid car. And I think he was giving your brother bad advice, having him buy a car he's gonna have to make payments on. If you can't afford it, do what you did, buy a car in cash where you don't have to keep making payments. I hate that sort of thing. I can't remember the last time I bought a car and made payments on it because I usually just buy them on the street. I also don't get why your parents are on his side. He insulted you and you fired back. But you're the bad guy? Yeah, personally, I wouldn't apologize. Our next one comes from Pop Puzzleheaded 7846. Am I the beehole for coming to the hospital to see my ex after her son called me? 7 years ago, I started dating a woman. Let's call her Maya. She has a son, Mark. He was 4 when I started dating Maya. Mark's father, Maya's husband, unfortunately passed away when he was still a baby, so he has no memory of him. Me and Maya got along quite well, and our relationship proceeded steadily and without too many problems. In time, I built a good relationship with Mark, too, and by the time he was 7, we were a good trio. Unfortunately, my relationship with Maya ended 2 years ago. It was nobody's fault. There was no cheating or abuse involved. We simply had some problems, and we came to the conclusion that it was better to break up. Last week, I got a call in the middle of the night. It was Mark calling. When I was still dating Maya, I had given him my phone number, and told him to call if he was ever in trouble and needed help. He had never called since me and Maya broke up, but that night he was panicking. He called, and he told me that he and Maya had a car accident. He was okay, but Maya was injured, and they had been taken to the hospital. I pondered on what to do, but decided to go to the hospital. Maya has no living relatives, and Mark told me he was alone, so I went there mostly to take care of Mark. When I arrived, Maya was still unconscious, so I stayed with Mark for several hours, until she regained consciousness. When she saw me, she asked why I was there, and I told her about Mark calling me. She said I should not have come and forced me to leave. At the time, I apologized and left because I thought I had overstepped her boundaries. But now, thinking back, I don't think I did anything wrong. Mark was panicking, and he called for the person he wanted by his side in that moment. Was it wrong for me to come? Am I the beehole? Hi, OP. You are not the beehole. I believe you did the right thing here. Mark needed you. His mom was unconscious. That's a scary thing, man. And apparently he had no one else to call. And Mark's, a young boy, 11, 12? He needed someone to look after him in that situation. Personally, I think you would have been the a-hole if you didn't go help. I probably would have went too. I mean, it's not the child's fault you and, Maya broke up. And you were supporting Mark. You weren't supporting your ex. So, no, you weren't in the wrong there. And our next one comes from Additional Door 3206. Am I the beehole for kicking out my girlfriend and her son after she invited her ex into our home? Me, a 35-year-old male, and my girlfriend, Sarah, a 35-year-old female, have been together for 4 years. She has a son, Nathan, a 9-year-old male, with her ex, Mark, a 36-year-old male. Sarah has full custody of Nathan with her ex, having scheduled visits one weekend every month. Sarah and Nathan moved in with me a little over a year and a half ago. In my perspective, it was a little rocky at first. I've always been pretty protective of my space, so making room for two other people was difficult for me. When Sarah moved in with me, we agreed that the visitations for Mark would be held in our apartment as long as I'm home. The main reason I wanted this is because I don't know Mark that well, and I don't want him wandering around our apartment without me there. When we proposed this idea to Mark, he was fine with it. Now, moving on to the real issue. 3 weeks ago marked 4 years since Mark's last visit. So, I had asked Sarah when he was planning on visiting Nathan. My girlfriend replied by shrugging her shoulders and telling me she'd ask. She never followed up with it, so a few days ago I asked when Mark's next visit was. And Sarah said she'd tell me when she knew. Nathan was in the living room but had apparently overheard us and shouted something along the lines of, "Dad was here last week, remember?" Sarah's face immediately dropped, and when I asked what Nathan meant, she wouldn't give me a direct answer. Eventually, she ended up telling me that for the past 2 visits, Mark had been in our apartment when I was working. When I accused her of going back on our agreement, she kept telling me this was her home too, and she can invite whoever she wanted, and that it was fine because she was here watching. I told her that was besides the point, and she violated my trust. It blew up into a huge argument, which ended up in me telling her to get out of my apartment. She packed up and left with Nathan. Last I heard, she was staying with her parents. I've gotten several messages from both Sarah and her parents calling me a beehole for kicking Sarah and Nathan out of their home for something so small. She's even been blasting me on Instagram and Facebook about how horrible I am to do this to her. It's got me thinking I might be the beehole, but I'm not entirely sure yet. Am I the beehole? Hi, OP, you are not the beehole. And I don't get where Sarah and her parents who are enabling her, they made her this way apparently, if they're enabling her like this, for calling this something so small. This wasn't small. She let a stranger into your house, a stranger who might have beef with you because you're, with his girl and his child, even though they're divorced, some people get crazy like that. She 127,000% violated your trust, like you said in the story. And I know you said that it's your, our apartment, but no. That is your apartment, and you were nice enough to let her move in with you. Personally, I wouldn't be raising another man's child, but that's you do your thing. But after seeing this, how she was easily able to disrespect you, because she knew what she was doing was wrong because she didn't tell you. And she probably never planned to tell you. Luckily, you're not married. Personally, I would see this as a relationship ender and be done with it. Our next one comes from Otherwise Cycle 2441. Am I the beehole for making my oldest pay back a $3,000 dress she ruined? My oldest, Bethany, age 16, has a step-sibling, Mariah, age 14, almost 15. Bethany and I are white, while my husband and Mariah are Mexican descent. They've been in each other's lives since they were 6 and 7, and overall the relationship has been good, until recently. Maria's quince is coming up, and my husband and his ex-wife took her to get her dress. The dress and all the altercations came to around $3,000. My daughter has been very jealous of the whole party. I've informed her it's a part of the culture, just like when she had a huge Sweet 16 party with her friends. I spent more time with her, trying to make her feel better about it, and got her own much cheaper dress for the party. The party is supposed to be in 2 weeks, but my daughter, after an argument with Maria about the TV, she scribbled Sharpie all over the expensive dress and ripped the back. The story short, everyone was pissed. I gave money to my husband and his ex to try and get a new dress ASAP. I informed my daughter she will need to get a job and pay back the full price of the dress as punishment. We got in a huge argument over it, and the whole situation isn't fair. That I'm choosing Maria and being a huge jerk. Am I being a huge jerk? OP, why are you asking if you're being a huge jerk? You're not being a huge jerk, and just for the subreddit, you are not the beehole. Your daughter's being a little beehole, and you need to nip that in the bud. It sounds like she's starting to grow up to be a narcissistic brat because the spotlight isn't on her for this party. She needs to learn that her actions, they have consequences, and its consequences is she needs to get a job and get $3,000 and give it to you because that's your money that she's costing you now. And OP, I think you're being a great parent. You're actually parenting your child, showing her that, yeah, you effed up. You need to fix your F up. Make sure she follows through and she pays you back that money, because she'll think she can get away with doing stuff like this for the rest of her life. Alright everyone, and that brings us to the end of this video. Can you please do what I said in the beginning? Like, comment, and subscribe. It will really help the channel out. Velvet out.